It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. Happy Friday to Scott Flippo. Senator Scott Flippo is on the program. Scott, how are you, sir?
Paul, I'm well. Thank you very much, and good morning to you and your listeners.
Yes.
Pleasure to be with you this morning.
I'm glad that you're with us. Remind the statewide audience, District 17 is where?
District 17, North Central Arkansas, and that covers the majority of Baxter, Marion, and Boone County.
There we go. That's a big district.
So in my opinion,
and one of my favorite parts of the state. One of my favorite parts of the state as well. So
absolutely.
So Scott, I want to talk about this amazing gun resolution, but before we do that, I do want to ask you about your vote, for the internet sales tax bill that came up this week.
Paul.
I know. I got to go there. Tell us about it.
Okay. So first of all, it's not the internet sales tax. It's the e-fairness bill, Paul. If you're going to call it something, get the name right. It's the e-fairness.
Well,
e-fairness bill.
Okay, so e-fairness.
Okay,
so tell us about it. It is a bill that's got a lot of stuff packed into it.
Down here in Little Rock, it's always about fairness.
Yeah.
So the internet sales tax. So that was a difficult vote to make. Ideally, I like to see tax cuts on their own because there was a corporate income tax that was wrapped in there with it.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we do here in Little Rock is, they'll take an increase somewhere and they'll lump it in with a tax cut, and which makes it difficult to vote against. Obviously, the Supreme Court ruled last year that states could collect, the sales tax on online purchases. I believe it was at $10,000 or more a year for a business. I want to say that was it, Paul.
I think you're right. Something in there.
That sounds right. And here's the thing. The messaging and the strategy behind this was, it's all about e-fairness. But what I think a lot of people fail to realize is that, this is not going to save Main Street business in and of itself. People's shopping habits are changing. The way they purchase things are changing. I'm 39 years old. A lot of people my age and younger, they'll shop online for the convenience factor. So is this going to be the silver bullet that's going to save, small Main Street business? I don't think it will be. Mm-hmm. But certainly that's one of the messaging parts behind it. But I would like to see that we're going to vote on things on their own and not lump it in together to try to make it easier.
But you would say down here. You would say the corporate tax provisions are kind of what got your yes vote?
Oh, absolutely. That's a difficult thing to vote against. I mean, Arkansas needs to be more competitive with our corporate tax rate. But again, we're going to lump that in with something else, which always makes it difficult. I want to say that measure got 27 votes in the Senate, 27, 28. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think that it did get 27, yeah.
I let him go past my name the first time. I put my thumb at the end. A difficult vote, but I made it, and I'm going to stand by it.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I don't want, we're at a point now, and just kind of address this if you don't mind. My fear is after this session is over, there's a lot of money that's going to be coming from the people to the government than before you guys met. Are you worried at all about that?
Yeah. I think that's a true statement, Paul. I don't think it. I know it.
You know it. So, that's what's so frustrating here. And we have this situation where Arkansas Works yesterday, the work requirements, struck down by a federal judge. Now, let me ask you this, Scott, because do you think it was a coincidence that, and now you didn't vote for the funding on that yesterday.
No, I didn't.
And that's a great vote. And you're being very consistent there in your opposition to it. But do you think that it was a coincidence that you guys pushed the funding for Arkansas Works through like an hour and a half before the judge comes down with his ruling?
Yes. It is not a coincidence. I do not believe in coincidences in politics. And so that was, well calculated on our part down here. And I don't think it was even an hour and a half. I think it was about 30 minutes before the judge came down with his ruling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
I mean, I think before we got out of session yesterday, Paul, or the day before yesterday, I saw online where the judge had overturned their work requirements.
Yeah, and I know
so there was a mad rush to get that. Of course, it would have been difficult for them to extend or pass the appropriations for Arkansas Works last year. without those work requirements.
Mm-hmm.
But with any government program, Paul, and you and your listeners are probably aware of this, once you expand or create a new social program, it's almost always impossible to do away with it. And Arkansas Works, private option, is no different.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And my concern is, Scott, I don't think we can afford, I know we can't afford Obamacare Medicaid expansion without the work requirements. I don't think we can afford it with the work requirements personally.
No, I didn't vote for it with the work requirements. You know what I think what would have tipped the scales for me had been had we gone along and the feds approved the waiver to allow us to reduce eligibility from 130% to 100% of federal poverty line. That would have really reined it in, and I think made it more manageable, more so than just the work requirements on their own. As I understood it, the feds were not really open. The Trump administration was not really open to that for fear that a lot of states that didn't expand Medicaid would want to come on board and expand it under those conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But either way, it's just a boondoggle. I was telling somebody last night. The good news is at least we have this free wraparound dental coverage for people on Arkansas Works to encourage them to be good stewards of their already free insurance.
I'm forgetting about the wraparound coverage. Yeah, okay. About to say, I thought you were being sarcastic there. Yeah, because that's not good news.
No,
we're talking
This is ridiculous. We're giving people free wraparound dental coverage to be a good steward of their already free insurance. Think about that.
Yeah, and it's
I don't even have dental insurance.
Hey, State Representative Josh Miller actually has a bill. I think it's House Bill 1929
to move it all to Medicaid, traditional Medicaid.
Yeah, at this point, it's demonstrably cheaper to do that.
Yeah, you bet. I like that.
I mean, to me, that's a solution moving forward. I mean, I know the governor yesterday said, no, we're going to stick with these work requirements and stick with giving Blue Cross Blue Shield $600 a month per person, But I mean, honestly, at this point, financially speaking, it makes way more sense to just keep expanded Medicaid and do it fee for service into the traditional pool because it's way cheaper. We're talking with Senator Scott Flippo. Now let's talk about this week. Now, this was a big deal, a much bigger deal. I know everyone talks about how a resolution is non-binding, but the reason this was such a big deal is for 5 years, grassroots activists, Scott, have been saying that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state, that you don't need a permit to carry open or concealed, and you decided to run a resolution in the Senate clarifying a circuit court decision. Tell us about that.
So I visited with Representative Brant Smith out of Jonesboro a few months ago, and I told him, I said, listen, if you have if you want to move forward with this resolution and you have trouble with a Senate sponsor, you call me and let me know, and I'll be more than happy to run it for you. So 2 or 3 weeks later, Brant calls me and asked me if I would be willing to run it in the Senate. I said, of course. Here's the thing, Paul. Rights are important. Exercising those rights are important because if you do not exercise your rights, you lose your rights. Not everybody in Arkansas is going to open carry. The vast majority are not. However, it is important for people to know that we are a constitutional carry state, which means you have the right to carry open or concealed without a permit. And there has been a lot of confusion over that. I mean, we have been an open carry state for a number of years now. The problem is that there's still, a lot of pockets of our state and a lot of folks, in law enforcement and other areas of government that don't understand that or realize that yet. So we need to educate people. And so last year there was an appeals court ruling. I believe it was Taft versus Arkansas.
Taft
versus Arkansas. And what the appeals court ruled was that essentially they just clarified that indeed we are a constitutional carry state and you do have the right to carry openly or concealed without a permit. Now, this resolution is just showing that this General Assembly concurs with that ruling. We are in agreement. The governor has already come out and said we're an open carry state. The Attorney General has come out and said we're an open carry state. And I thought it was important for this General Assembly to go out and reiterate that as well.
Well, I'm really glad that you did. And, you mentioned the Attorney General. She did, in response to former Senator Linda Collins Smith's letter, Scott, asking if there was an actual penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a concealed handgun. She said there is none. But then she urged, because 746, Act 746 of 2013, people still are confused about it. Although this resolution that you just passed, Scott, it really helps with that confusion, makes it clear.
And it's sad, Paul, that people are still confused about it.
Yeah.
Because I've read it. I know you've read it. Everybody down here in Little Rock has read it. I don't believe there's any confusion on anybody that I talked to's part as far as what it allows for.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge, she did say she encouraged you guys in the legislature in her last opinion on this. I think it's
to come back and clarify.
To clarify. And the title of the resolution is to clarify gun rights. And so
to clarify gun rights. I don't know how we could be more specific than that.
Yes. So
I was glad. It was no major opposition in the Senate other than what you would expect, which was some liberal Democrats. But it's something that all Republicans are kind of on the same page on. We're all in agreement, and I think it's important that we go out and speak with one voice on that. Again, you cannot quantify how important not just your right to bear arms, but any right that you have. The importance of it, and the importance for people to be able to exercise it.
Yeah.
Because when people exercise their rights, they don't just benefit them, they collectively benefit all of us.
I completely agree with that. Senator Scott Flippo, it's always great to have you on, sir. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you running that resolution. I don't appreciate that first vote we talked about. But
and I appreciate that. And Paul, I can tell you, you're not the only one, I can assure you.
Well, you have a good weekend, Scott.
Listen, you do the same. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. It's always great to have you on.